Hi, this is Don McAllister and welcome to another edition of Screencasts Online. If everything has gone to plan, this episode should be released on the same day that macOS Mojave or macOS 10.14 is released to the general public. In this episode, I'm going to run through most of the new and updated features in this brand new operating system. I'll be demoing this on my MacBook Pro, and as I covered in the recent tip video, Getting Ready for Mojave, I've already checked that all the applications I rely on are supported by Mojave, as well as taking both a full bootable backup and a Time Machine backup. Now, even with these safeguards in place, if you use your Mac for business or any critical tasks, it may well be worth hanging on until the next point release before upgrading. Now, macOS Mojave is available as a free download from the Mac App Store. I've already downloaded and installed it on this MacBook Pro, so let's take a look at some of the new features. So here we have macOS Mojave installed and working on my MacBook Pro. And the first thing that we notice is this beautiful new wallpaper that's provided as part of the operating system. I'm going to take a look at a feature called Dynamic Desktops after this next section, but the first thing I wanted to show to you is this brand new, probably the most heralded feature of macOS Mojave, and that's the dark mode. And this is where you can switch the user interface. Virtually every element in the user interface has been optimized for this dark mode. You can switch it on during the installation process. I opted not to, but I'll show you how to switch it on now that we have the operating system installed. We just go up to System Preferences, and then under General, there is an option here at the top. So this is the traditional light appearance. So using a light appearance for buttons, menus, and windows. And this is the new dark appearance. So if we go ahead and switch on dark mode. So there we go. We've got the toolbars changed to dark mode. This panel has changed to dark mode. Every window now within the operating system will be in this dark mode. Now, dark mode can be supported by third-party apps as well. Now, on release day, I would imagine most apps will be available for use with dark mode. You might find one or two outliers that haven't quite caught up. So you might see one or two anomalies with third-party applications in dark mode. But all the Apple apps, they're all fully optimized for dark mode, so it shouldn't be a problem. One other thing though before we press on, and this is the accent color. I mean, you have all these different accent colors. You'll see as I click on these, they change. I found the nicest one for dark mode is actually this gray one. I tend to prefer that. It's a little bit more muted when we're using the dark mode. Now, I was in two minds as to whether or not to switch back to the light appearance for this screencast, but let's go with the dark mode for this particular episode. If people do have problems viewing what's on the screen, please let me know and I'll revert back to the light mode for future screencasts. But I thought, seeing as this is the brand new Mojave and people have made such a fuss about dark mode, we might as well give it a go. So let me go ahead and close this down. To complement the new dark mode, Apple have introduced another new feature called Dynamic Desktops, and this enables you to have dynamically changing desktop wallpapers depending on the time of the day and your location. That's just a quick preview of one of this week's Apple-related tutorials from Screencasts Online. Screencasts Online is your premium source of Apple-related video tutorials. All of our members get access to brand new, up-to-date tutorials each week, as well as unlimited access to our entire video archive full of Mac and iOS related tutorials. You can stream and download all of our videos on your Mac, iPad and iPhone, and even your Apple TV using the members-only Screencasts Online Apple TV app. Membership also includes a complimentary subscription to the digital Screencasts Online monthly magazine, published each month and packed with videos, articles, reviews, as well as hints and tips covering all aspects of the Mac, iPad, iPhone, and all of the other fantastic Apple products. So, if you're ready to start getting the most out of your Apple devices, visit screencastsonline.com today and become a Screencasts Online member.